Hello! Today, we're going to take a break from our regularly scheduled cocktails so I can bring you on a humble man's journey to make a Bluey cake for his nephew's birthday. Because who doesn't love Bluey? Although some people, I guess you could say, prefer Bluey's dad. Not only is this cake Bluey shaped, but it is also a chocolate and peanut butter Reese's flavored cake, because my nephew, and many of you out there I'm sure too, love Reese's. So first I wanted to make the buttercream so I could go ahead and get started on my drawing of Bluey. I went online and I found a reference photo that I could use to trace the picture, and then I divided up my frosting into however many colors there were in the picture and used food coloring to recreate all those different colors. I didn't get them exactly perfect, but they were close enough for a 4-year-old. Now I actually needed to print the image out so that I could trace it, and it turned out being big enough that I needed to print it on 2 different sheets of paper, so I just taped those 2 together and then taped it down to a cutting board. If you do this, make sure you put it on a cutting board that you can just pick up and transfer into your freezer. I didn't do that, and it was kind of difficult to get it from one to the other. Once I had my parchment paper over the picture, I went ahead and started tracing and coloring, and if I could go back, I would make my layers of frosting a lot thicker, because when I actually went to transfer this onto the cake, it really started cracking and falling apart, and that was very stressful. I am also a very casual baker. I do not have piping bags. I just put the frosting right into a Ziploc and cut the corner off. I've never used a piping bag, so I guess I don't really know what I'm missing out on. Once I finished my Bluey drawing, which took me a painstaking 2 hours, I went ahead and I popped it in the freezer. Now we can begin on the cakes themselves, and I actually doubled the recipe for this one too because I want it to be layered, but it turned out super tall. This thing was a unit of a cake, so if I did this again, I'd probably do 1.5 the recipe and then just divide that in half. Once I got the cakes into the oven, I went ahead and started on my peanut butter buttercream frosting. That's kind of a tongue twister. Peanut butter buttercream, peanut butter buttercream. And like everything else, I doubled the recipe for this, and I am glad that I did because, like I said, this cake turned out massive. This icing also tasted so good. It tasted like those Nutty Buddy bars that maybe you had as a kid. But once that's complete and the cake is out of the oven, then all you have left is to assemble. Now I really wanted to go the extra mile and make this cake also in the shape of Bluey, so I took my image and put it onto the cake and then started cutting it out, but I made a pretty big mistake here. I should have flipped the picture over before I cut it out on the cake, because when you flip the frozen icing transfer onto the cake, it will be mirrored. Now, unfortunately, I didn't capture the majority of me transferring Bluey from the parchment paper over to the cake because I was just so panicked because I didn't mirror it and then the icing started melting. It was a nightmare. A very hectic nightmare. But I did manage to capture a little bit of it, and she got there in quite a few pieces, but she made it. And then I took a little bit of extra icing and just filled in the cracks. So after all of that, here is the finished product. It took me probably about 8 hours to do this, and then the next day I bring it over to my nephew's for his birthday party, and he eats too much pizza and tells me that he actually doesn't want any cake. And I just shrugged it off because, you know, kids be kids. What are you gonna do about it? But I do feel, after all of that, pretty accomplished that I actually pulled this off, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Thanks for joining me on my Bluey cake journey, and if you're interested in cocktails, I've got plenty of other videos on that you can check out. But with that, I will let you go, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.